subpoena prove anything? Understanding yesterday's impeachment ruling. Hello po mga ka-BH. Yesterday's impeachment proceedings generated another wave of headlines. Marami nagsasabi, malaking panalo ito para sa prosecution. And that got me thinking, does granting a subpoena actually prove anything? Or is it simply part of the legal process? So now let's go beyond the headlines and understand what yesterday's ruling really means. Because before we react, before we choose a side, and before we share what we see online, we should first understand the facts, the law, and the process. Question number 1. Does a subpoena prove the allegations? The short answer, no. A subpoena simply allows the Senate Impeachment Court to require the production of documents. Parang sinasabi lang ng Senado, dalhin ninyo ang records, tignan natin kung may relevance ang mga ito sa kasong ito. Hindi ibig sabihin na totoo ang aligasyon at lalong hindi ibig sabihin na may napatunayan ng impeachable offense. So yes, the prosecution won in its request for subpoenas, but they have yet to prove their case. Question number 2. Bakit kailangan pa ng subpoena? This is where it gets interesting. If these records are important to prove the articles of impeachment, does requesting them now mean the prosecution is still gathering evidence after the complaint has already been filed? That is the question the defense will likely raise. Of course, the prosecution will argue that these records are necessary to support the allegations already contained in the articles of impeachment. Ultimately, the Senate Impeachment Court will determine whether these records are relevant and what weight they should be given. Question number 3. Can this ruling become a double-edged sword? I believe it can. If the records support the allegations, then the prosecution's case becomes stronger. But if everything is open and they still fail to prove the charges, the defense could argue, lahat na ng records pinabuksan nyo na, pero wala pa rin kayong napatunayang impeachable offense. Another issue worth watching is the scope of these subpoenas. The question is not whether the subpoenas can be issued. They clearly can. The question is whether yung records being requested remain directly connected sa articles of impeachment or whether the requests have become broader than what is necessary to prove the charges. If either side believes constitutional limits have been crossed, that issue now can be questioned again before the Supreme Court, just as the constitutional issues katulad po nung corona impeachment eventually reached the Supreme Court. So my biggest takeaway from yesterday is simple. A subpoena gives access to evidence. It does not automatically prove the allegations. The burden of proving an impeachable offense still rests on the prosecution. As always, our goal is not to defend personalities, nor is it to attack them. Our goal is to understand the law, the facts, and the process before we make up our minds. Because every headline deserves a closer look. Let's go behind the headlines. Together, let us empower lives.